Operating at an extraordinary level can seem challenging. Learn how to survive in the lone wolf economy in the OG Money podcast with Lonnie Ogulnick. Drawing on over 20 years of experience in the trenches of Wall Street, Lonnie explores what it takes to be successful in today's rapidly changing environment. From daily routines, wealth strategies, and sustaining the highest levels of wisdom, Lonnie and his guests unpack proven ways to live an extraordinary life.
Good afternoon and welcome to the OG Money podcast. Today I have a very special guest, one of the OGs of this country, today from Brazil. Originally, I can't wait to dig in and get some nuggets of gold and learn a little bit from Pedro Valente. Good to see you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be part of this OG Money podcast. And let's have a good conversation.
So most people outside the Jiu Jitsu world probably don't know you.
That's correct.
Inside the Jiu Jitsu world, I would say, you're right up there at the top. As far as if I go to California and they do Jiu Jitsu and I say I train at the Valente Brothers, the first thing I get is legit. That's what I get, like, wow. That's a great place. So what I want to dig into, because my passion isn't so much right now. I like to go back. I want to go back. And how did this start? Like, where did basically Pedro Valente come from? How did you become a Navy belt? You basically lived in the home of Helio Gracie. Tell us a little bit about the childhood growing up and how you ended up here today.
Yeah, I was very fortunate. I always like to use one of Isaac Newton's quotes, one of my favorite quotes, which says, if I can see further, it's only because I'm standing on the shoulders of giants. And I think the main reason for our success is that we had amazing mentors, especially our father and our jiu-jitsu teacher. Our father was a very, very successful doctor, plastic surgeon, and he was a man of many facets. He was successful in everything he did, and it wasn't only medicine. If that wasn't enough,
I want to stop you right there, because I've heard a lot about your father. I've met your father when I first started, right? So where did he get that from?
We come from a generation of doctors, and his father was a doctor. But I think that came from his fighting spirit. That's something that I think he was born with. And he was not satisfied, not easily satisfied. He wanted more. So for him, it wasn't enough to be one of the most famous and successful surgeons in Brazil. He also became the chief doctor for one of the biggest soccer teams, Vasco da Gama, in Brazil. He was a public servant. He was the Secretary of Health and then Transportation for the state of Rio de Janeiro, the second largest state in Brazil. He was involved with horses, and not only he became a champion in show jumping, but he also owned horses that actually became world champion with different riders. Eventually, my sister was someone who excelled and won several international titles as a horseback rider, as a show jumper. So that was a passion of his as well. And jiu-jitsu, which he started training when he was a young boy. And I think the philosophy of jiu-jitsu really modeled his life and his passions and his success. In many ways, he would attribute to the confidence that he gained by practicing jiu-jitsu. And that's why that was so important for him to use that as part of our education.
All right, so along comes Pedro Valente, right? You're born. Pedro Valente, you're now his first son. And how does he take you and raise you in the world of jiu-jitsu?
So there's an interview with my father from 1968 in a big newspaper in Brazil. So 1968, my dad was 30 years old. He was 29, actually. And he was already a very young and successful plastic surgeon. At 29 years old, he already became one of the most famous surgeons in Brazil. Very young. And they asked him, they said, what's the secret to your success? And he said, because I have a philosophy. I live my life with a philosophy, and I think that gives me an advantage over my peers. There's another quote, I don't know if it's Aristotle or Plato, which goes, unexamined life is not worth living. So life requires examination. And that's when you come up with a philosophy, with a guide, with a set of pillars that can help you with the tough decisions of life. And so my dad had this philosophy, this lifestyle that in many ways came from Jiu Jitsu, but also from his parents and from his background. And he used that in our education. So it wasn't just random, just, send them to school and let the teachers educate them. No. He really thought out the whole process of how to educate us, how to build confident, strong human beings. And in that, he used a Japanese motto from the samurai warriors, which is Bunburi Odo. We actually have this on the main wall of our mat. And what it means is that to be truly confident, to be a complete person, to be a whole person. Actually, they use Do means way, the Chinese Tao. That the way is in the combination of being a warrior and being a scholar. That you need both the intellectual arts and the martial arts. Many people have great intellects, become scholars, but don't have the physical confidence. If someone in a parking lot, in a road rage incident, attacks them, they'll be petrified. Others in the street might be very savvy and very confident in fighting, but did not have an opportunity to develop their intellect, so they have that intellectual insecurity. It's rare that you find individuals that have both, that are masters of the literary arts and the fighting arts. And when you have that combination, then you have a confidence that is unique. And our dad wanted to give us that. In addition to that, a healthy lifestyle, discipline through nutrition, and many other factors that really contributed to our success and to my brothers and I, each one of us at 18 years old, once we graduated high school, moving to a new country by ourselves. At least when I first came, I was alone here. And not only to study at the University of Miami and graduate and get a degree, get a master's, but then subsequently create from scratch our jiu-jitsu school. And today we are very fortunate that it is one of the most successful schools in the world, and that we were able to build this structure, this building that we are in right now, which is, I think, unparalleled in the martial arts world. I don't think there are too many buildings like this dedicated exclusively to the teaching of self-defense, the teaching of defensive tactics and martial arts.
Okay, so there's a lot in there. So I'm going to delve into a couple. I'm going to go right to one of my favorite pictures that I saw recently of you. You must have been 12 or 13, and it's Henzo. It's all of the Gracie brothers. And you're talking about killers, not just like your average tough guys. You're talking about guys that are the toughest guys in the world, the biggest badasses in the world, right? So I'm sitting down with you, and I notice this about a lot of jiu-jitsu practitioners that are at your level, right? They're Labrador retrievers. They're not pit bulls. They're so kind and gentle and nice, and you just want to be around them. But yet, within 30 seconds, you can kill me with your bare hands if you wanted to, right? So when you grew up with these kids, what was that like?
It was as you said, you said it very well. What defines a true warrior is not the ability to do harm. It's the kindness and the generosity that you will find in that warrior's heart. Because yes, sometimes violence is necessary. But a true warrior will only use violence for a good cause. You must only fight the good fight. So I was surrounded, as you said, I grew up with this philosophy, and the toughest one of all, which was Grandmaster Eddie Gracie.
Right.
And he always taught all of us these principles of kindness and generosity and forgiveness, and not seeking revenge, but only using these skills in self-defense, because we understood very early the power of our skills. Obviously, all these individuals that you mentioned were very tough. But what made them tough was not something that they were born with so much. It is the knowledge of Jiu Jitsu, the techniques of Jiu Jitsu. And when I say Jiu Jitsu, I say Jiu Jitsu in its original martial form for combat. And all of them had that background, and that creates a toughness based on confidence and based not on recklessness, but on this belief that you are able to hold your own against anyone, and that no matter who is on the other side, that you can defend yourself and you can survive. And what is that confidence based on ultimately? Yes, it is based on skill and knowledge, but it is also based on this belief that if you do the right thing and if you live life according to a code, then everything is going to be okay.
So let's roll right into that then. Let's go right into the 753 code. A, where does that come from? Who made it up? And can you tell me each word of the 753 code for the listeners and explain each one and why it's so important? Because we hear it, we see it tagged, no one really knows what it means. I do, but let's get a little deep into the 753 code because I think it's very important. And I now know there's a class for the black belts here online, which ultimately I hope to one day participate in, but let's get into that 753 code.
Absolutely. So I could not take credit for the creation of the 753 code because these are timeless virtues. If you look from the ancient Greeks to the knights, to the samurai warriors, and other cultures around the world, you will find these same principles. If you look at the cardinal virtues, right? Prudence, moderation, fortitude. When you look at the knightly virtues, when you look at the samurai warrior virtues, the Bushido code, you will find that they all have very strong parallels. So what we did, my brothers and I, is we organized the philosophy that we learned into a system, and that's what the 753 code is. It's a complete guide to life, a blueprint to life, if you may. And it is designed for us to be able to explain the philosophy of Jiu Jitsu to our students. Because when you hear about martial arts philosophies, usually people talk about mind, body, and spirit. But what does that mean exactly? And each teacher will have one explanation. But we wanted to organize something that would enable all of the Jiu Jitsu community and the martial arts community at large to understand more completely what the philosophy of the martial arts really is. And so we combined the code of the samurai, which comes from a book, the Bushido Code by Inazo Nitobi. He organized these 7 virtues, exemplifying the spirit of the samurais, of the warriors of old Japan. Then we took the philosophy of physical health, which we learned from our father, inspired by Grandmaster Carlos Gracie, the older brother of my teacher, who was extremely wise and who really spent a lot of time studying the different ways to excellence in health, in physical health, in longevity. And then when it comes to the mind and the components of the warrior mindset, then we also borrowed a few concepts from the samurai warriors. So the 7 has to do with the spirit. 7 words coming from the Bushido Code. The 5 has to do with wellness of the body. And the 3 has to do with wellness of the mind. And by having wellness of the spirit, the body, and the mind, then you have full wellness, complete sense of wellness. And many times people talk about different areas, be it spirit, be it virtue, be it nutrition, meditation, but it's rare that you find a system that is complete and gives you a whole approach to life. Not only for your life, but for those who have kids, for parenting and using that as a guide. So that has been very successful for us. And if you want, we can have a brief conversation about each one of the elements and what they mean and how they relate. Because we like to say that these elements are not values, because each person who learns the 753 code is going to construct their own set of values. We're not here to tell people what to do or how to think. We're just giving our students pillars. And with these pillars, they can construct their own set of values based on their own beliefs and their own
Before we dig
background.
into that, I'm going to add in a little notch under your belt as far as this school goes, because a lot of people don't have that father figure and that blueprint, and that this school kind of offers that, and the loyalty and the family-like structure of the school. I think in business, we like to say the fish stinks from the head, and the inverse of that, some people like to talk about like trickle-down economics and things of that nature, but I believe that if an organization is run well, it starts from the top, right? And you and your brothers, you often have that quote, like the three brothers together. You say it better, the loyalty one, like if you stick together, it's like a fortress.
It's Aristophanes, it's an ancient Greek, and it's if when brothers agree, no fortress is as strong as their common bond.
Yeah, and that trickles down to the school. You don't even know this, but like you could see somebody from the school in Aspen, Colorado, wherever if you see the Valente Brothers, like they've got your back. Like it's like a brother. So okay, let's dig into those words a little bit.
So let me just make a point here about this, because this is very interesting what you just brought up, and this is a very deep subject. We can go back to some more contemporary philosophers, Jean-Paul Sartre, and even Nietzsche, when they talk about existence versus essence. What is more important? How much do you value what was left to you by your ancestors when it comes to moral virtue, when it comes to values, when it comes to the essence of life and how you should live your life? We believe in essence. Sure, we believe in the individual 100%, and our free will and our ability to make our own decisions. However, we should find guidance in what came before us, in what stands above us. As you said, as far as the fish stinking from the head, and working the opposite of that. And we recognize that we have giants before us, and we're not going to throw away what they did. Obviously, we're going to learn the hard lessons, even from their mistakes. And they would have wanted that, no question, and that's important. We're not going to follow blindly, and that's not what we're suggesting. But some people, they rebel for the sake of rebelling. And they have this need, and that's a product of the ego, to do everything by themselves and to try to reject what came before, to try to get full credit. But they don't know how much they're losing in having that approach. So one thing that we've done well is we've valued those who came before us. We valued experience. We valued the essence of what makes us who we are. We understand that before we were born, these philosophies were already being practiced and thought out. And as I said, an unexamined life is not worth living. So we constantly examine our lives and our philosophy and our ways, and we believe that that gives us an advantage.
So let's dig into those words a little bit of wisdom, because I think that it's important. Again, I fall off the path quite often. I know COVID-19 knocked everybody, for a loop. But, one thing I think Jiu Jitsu taught me and coming to this school is you told me in the book that, look, sometimes you're fighting on top and that's easy. But when you're in Jiu Jitsu, you learn how to fight from the bottom. You're not always going to be on the top throwing elbows and punches. Sometimes you need to learn the defense and the art of offense from the back. And I quickly changed the way I was doing my business and pivoted a bit, but never for one day did I miss work. I kept that philosophy alive, and I know you did too. you pivoted really quickly and recreated a whole new school online. But we can get into that, but I do want to touch on the words and what they mean because I think they're very powerful.
Absolutely. And the first word is rectitude. There's an ancient Greek term, phronesis. And phronesis has to do with doing the right thing.
Yeah.
Not just thinking the right thing, but doing the right thing. It has to do with actions, with acts, decisions that you make every day. And when you make a decision, doing it the right way. And obviously we can have a whole discussion about what's right and wrong.
You hit the nail on the head. Just do the right thing.
But just do the right thing.
Yes, okay.
And just use common sense and wisdom and prudence. And that's the first word because it symbolizes the rest of the code.
Mm-hmm.
If you just remember to always do the right thing, then you'll be okay. And how many times we know something is right, but we don't do it? Because it's hard, because we're tempted, because we might gain an advantage by not doing the right thing. But in the end, that's not going to be good for you. And so the rest of the code is only an attempt to help you understand what is the right thing. Now, before you understand what is the right thing, you need something that will fuel you to be able to do the right thing. You need fuel to do the right thing when the situation is tough. Because when the right thing is what you want to do, if those things are connected, want, desire, and the right thing, then it's easy. You just do it. The problem is when you desire to do the wrong thing.
Right. And I've seen a lot of people in my business. I've been doing this for like 22, 23 years as a financial advisor, a couple of crashes, and there's not many of us left from then. And it's those that did not align with their clients or do the right thing that melted away. The ones that did do the right thing, continue to do the right thing, they've remained. Exactly. And they're standing.
Exactly. And what's the fuel to rectitude? Courage. You need courage to do the right thing when the situation is difficult. And there are two types of courages. You have physical courage, and I immediately think of first responders and also the men and women who serve in our military because they're putting their lives on the line for a greater cause, for the greater good, for the benefit of us all, to protect our freedoms. And so that's amazing. You think of New York City in September 11th and how those firefighters, they ran up the stairs when they knew that that building could collapse to save lives. That takes courage. And that's physical courage. But you also have moral courage, where you're not risking physical injury, you're not risking death, but you're risking other factors, financial loss. You're risking a job, you're risking relationships, friendships, but you still do the right thing. And that requires moral courage, standing up for what you believe is right, even when everyone else is not. And some people believe that courage cannot be taught, that courage cannot be developed, and I disagree with that. I know that's not right, because we build courage in people here every day. That is what we do best here in our school. At Valente Brothers, our mission is to give people confidence, which translates to courage. And so that's the second word, courage. So rectitude, courage. And the third word is benevolence, kindness, generosity. My father always repeated a quote that I think is amazing. If the selfish person knew the advantages of being unselfish, that person would be unselfish for selfish reasons.
Genius.
It is best to be kind. It is best to be generous. And some people will say, well, but if you're only being kind to help yourself, then that's not worth it. I disagree. Be kind, no matter what your motivation is. Be kind. Help others. And then, by doing that all the time, it's going to become a habit. And then no longer you're going to do it because you're seeking some advantage. You're going to do it because it's stemming naturally from your heart. So it might start for the wrong reasons, for selfish reasons, but eventually kindness will become a habit, just like rectitude can become a habit, just like courage can become a habit. And that connects to the next word, which is respect. Respect means that you have courtesy, you have good manners, you have tact. And it's interesting that the word respect comes right before the word honesty. honesty is important. Some people say, I say things like they are. I call strikes, right? And balls. I don't hide the truth from anybody. I'll tell you the truth. And I think that's great. That's honesty, sincerity. But the way you say it matters. Because if you don't care how the other person is going to receive it, then you lack empathy. And if you lack empathy, you lack benevolence. You lack love, which is the care for other people, for the well-being of other people. You shouldn't want to hurt anyone's feelings. So that's the balance that we have to find. We do live in a society that has become too sensitive. I agree with that. People get offended too easily. People are too easily affected. And later we're going to talk about the concept of fudōshin, which means imperturbability, equanimity, poise. You're not easily affected by things, especially by things that other people say. But I also think that because of social media, we have become too rude and too aggressive in a way that is negative, in a way that is lacking empathy. And that's not good either. So we have to find that balance between truthfulness, strength of character and strength of mind, but also empathy, benevolence, kindness, and generosity.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to go too far off here, but this whole social media thing with the kids today, what they're seeing, what they're being influenced by, is almost a disaster, in my opinion. And I'm going to ask you, let's take a left turn quickly and say, the way you were brought up, I know you've never done any type of alcohol, drugs, right? So you're as clean as it comes, right? And it's almost glorified today, right? You have guys in Jiu Jitsu. I'm on social media smoking a joint before he goes and trains.
Oh, did you see Cobra Kai? Let's talk about Cobra Kai. TV show based on the old Karate Kid movie.
Right.
It's on Netflix.
It's one of my favorite movies of all time.
So you haven't watched Cobra Kai?
I haven't been doing anything other than
watch it. It's amazing.
I study stock charts.
That's good. I'm like that too. I think about Jiu Jitsu all day. But since Cobra Kai is a martial arts show, I'm just like you. But I think this one is worth watching.
Okay.
And it's a great show. But everything is an excuse to drink alcohol.
Yeah.
And nothing against people who drink.
Right.
But why are they promoting alcohol so much? I don't understand.
Right.
And so, it is, as you said, it's ubiquitous, it's pervasive, it's everywhere.
Do you think it's possible for your son to grow up in America today the way you did in Brazil with your yes. Okay, so tell me, because I'm raising two daughters, and when you say yes emphatically...
Yes, because my father did it, and you might say the world has changed, but when I was in eighth grade,
okay,
all my friends were smoking weed.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
Everyone was drinking.
Right.
But then I can go back to when I was a child. And here's the secret. Everyone was drinking Coca-Cola, and I wasn't.
Right.
Everyone was, rushing towards the cake in birthday parties, and I wasn't. So that discipline was developed early on.
Very interesting.
And so when it came time to say no to alcohol and no to drugs and no to cigarettes and things like that, I was already used to being different. I was already used to standing up for what I believe in. And that was not easy initially, but it trained my mind. So I remember being 5 years old, 6 years old, and many parents, of my friends and telling my mom, saying, why do you do this to your child? You're depriving him from his childhood. Let him have the chocolate and the cake. It's no big deal. But I didn't feel like I was missing out because I felt this sense of family, and my father did not prohibit. He explained. It was all based on reason, not on force. There was no coercion, right? He convinced us.
It's poison.
It's not good for you.
Right.
It's not good for you. Is it going to kill you? No, but why are you going to do something that is even a little bit bad? For what reason? For pleasure? Well, you can get pleasure with things that are not going to hurt you. So that develops a mindset of putting our health first, of doing the right thing and not doing what is pleasant, which doesn't mean that we cannot enjoy life and have fun. Absolutely, and we do that all the time. But if something is not 100% right, we are trained not to do it. Now, am I saying that I'm perfect? Absolutely not. I make mistakes all the time, probably more than everybody else.
I don't think more than everybody else.
but I have plenty of flaws in my character. But the thing is that I'm always trying to get better, and I recognize them. But at the same time, I have this strength that was built in me that I'm able to support hardship, and that my mind can withstand suffering. Like, I went to get a colonoscopy 2 days ago.
Fun.
And I was, and the reason why I say that is because I want to promote people at the right age to get it, because my father passed of colon cancer.
I'm sorry to hear that.
And it can be prevented through colonoscopies. Okay. Even though he was a doctor, he wasn't getting his regular colonoscopies. Right. So I decided to learn from that mistake, and to change So I got my first one, and I was in one of those cubicles, ready, waiting to go in, doing all my breathing exercises and all the mental work. And then I hear this other person on the cubicle next to me. They were like, "Did you fast?" "No, I can't fast. I have to eat," the guy said. "I have to eat. I'm thirsty. Bring me water." And they're like, "What did you have this morning? Did you have breakfast?" "Yeah, I had pancakes and syrup and this and that." Right. And I'm thinking, my God, he can't even stop himself from eating for 24 hours. Right? So how are you ready to face the hard? That's why people are always surprised and shocked with the hardships of life, and they are panicking and losing their poise and becoming hysterical. And I believe that we should be able to face the difficulties of life head on. Now, is it easy? No. But at least we have to believe that we're ready, and we have to, you don't go into a fight thinking that you're going to lose. Now, during the fight, it might be hard, as you said. You might have to fight from the bottom, and you adapt. But you have this confidence that you're not a slave of your desires, that you're the master of your mind. And whenever you're a slave of your desires, whenever you feel that you cannot control your desires, then you're weak. And you don't want to give in to weaknesses. That's why I don't believe in having addictions. I don't believe in even habits.
Well, I think you're addicted to training jiu-jitsu. Because I've never seen somebody in my life as passionate as you are about this.
So jiu-jitsu is positive.
Right.
It helps me. It's a great physical activity. It's great for the mind. So we can call this a positive habit.
Right.
However, that's what I was going to say. I don't even believe in habits.
Right.
Because if you tell me tomorrow and you convince me that there's something wrong with me doing jiu-jitsu and jiu-jitsu, I don't see that happening. But if you convince me that jiu-jitsu is not good for me, I'll stop tomorrow.
Right.
So it's not an addiction.
So
it's not going to be easy, but I'll do it.
So one time you came back from Russia, and it was like 2 weeks where you didn't get to train, and you came back, you were flying around like a chicken without a head. You were so happy to be back.
Yeah.
And you were like, I missed it so much.
Absolutely. But I still have this belief inside of me that I'm able to give it up.
Right.
And I was raised to believe that nothing stops me from giving up anything that I want to give up, whatever it is.
This is healthy, right? And I'm in awe of how you just do not... it's a repetitive sport, right? You do this a lot. It's not like in my business where I wake up on Monday morning and there's some event about the election and my business is gone, right? Like it is constantly fluctuating on a daily basis, up, down. This is just a philosophy. You're training, but you're also reinventing yourself all the time.
That's true, and that's what keeps it interesting.
Right.
And jiu-jitsu is so simple yet so complex.
So let's get into that for a second. What is jiu-jitsu?
Jiu-jitsu is a complete art of self-defense that teaches a person how to efficiently defend in the face of a dangerous attack. In addition to that, all those principles that enable us to defend ourselves can be used as a philosophy of life, because life is a fight. From the time you wake up in the morning and you have to fight with that alarm clock to getting up, to fighting through traffic, and then all the things that happen throughout your day. And you want to fight the good fight. But life is a fight. And so we learn how to fight the good fight, and we learn how to fight efficiently. That's what Jiu-Jitsu is all about. It's about learning how to fight efficiently. And the word Jiu-Jitsu means the art of yielding flexibility. So when someone is attacking you, the best way to defend is not to resist, but to yield through flexibility and to use your opponent's strength to your advantage. And so it is so fascinating that the learning never stops. It never ends. I saw my teacher, Grandmaster Helio Gracie. He was 94 years old, and he was still figuring out different ways to perform techniques more efficiently, especially as he got older and his physical strength subsided significantly. Then he was forced to find more efficient ways, better ways. And that's our quest, is a quest for excellence. We build this culture. I love the word culture, right? We live in Miami, and they talk a lot about the culture of the Miami Heat, Pat Riley, and that gives them a great advantage over other teams, is the sense of culture. So at VB, we have a culture, the VB culture.
I'm going to stop you for a second, because that culture borderlines on a religion. Because I'm not really a religious person, and we often come into this academy, me and my friends, and we say, you're going to the temple today. Because like it resonates on a spiritual front. You get to learn your self-defense, and it's so damn humbling. I came in here as a wrestler. I was a 2-time All-County wrestler, and I thought I was tough. You remember me, and
you are tough.
No,
and you were tough.
But I was so humbled quickly on day one that I was like, I was pretzeled in a heartbeat by a blue belt, and it was so humbling. And I find that also in the financial world, people who try to invest and get into the market, it's quite humbling. So I take the financial, what I do for a living, and the jiu-jitsu, and I connect those worlds, and there's a lot of similarity between an evolving financial world and, like you said, the evolving, never-ending learning of the art of jiu-jitsu.
Making those connections is very important, because when I explained about yielding flexibility, not resisting, that's what we did during the pandemic as a business.
Yeah.
Right? I saw a lot of people resisting, angry at the masks, angry at physical distancing, angry at this, angry at that, refusing to change because they have their self-righteousness. And no matter what opinions we might have about the whole thing, we faced reality. This is reality. These are the rules. How can we make the best of the situation that we're in right now? The school is closed. So we're going to establish an online program. And the first day, you remember, we were doing it with our iPhone on a vertical shot that, my brother was filming me doing the technique solo. We immediately started investing in a system, and we placed a camera on the wall, a whole broadcast system. We bought the equipment so that these transmissions could be done live in a professional way. And very quickly, they were. Also, we bought these training dummies that many people in the beginning were very skeptical about. But we knew we were not going to be able to train with each other. Mm-hmm. So what's the next best thing? Let's train with dummies. So we did that early. So the moment the county gave us the green light to reopen the schools, we already had all the dummies in place. We had tested them, all the sanitization protocols, the cleaning. So instead of becoming angry and resisting what had just happened in the situation that was in front of us, which was very dire, especially for a business like ours, because we are all about contact,
right?
Physical contact. And you remember back in April, people were saying things are never going to go back to normal. This is the new normal. Life is, and what are we thinking? Oh my God, how are we going to survive? How are we going to survive? By adapting. It's not survival of the fittest, as you know, it's survival of those who adapt. And I'm very proud of what my brothers and I did and our organization did, because we were able to adapt very quickly. We were able to do the best under the circumstances, and we felt ready as soon as we got the green light to open. Day one, we were back on the mats. And we closed on a Saturday. Monday, we were already teaching the online classes.
Right.
So there wasn't even one day that we didn't teach. And working hard to keep everyone together. And even though we were not, for those months when we weren't on the mat and we weren't even training with the dummies, we were working hard to help people by continuing to promote the Valente Brothers culture. And I believe that the culture that we created here is the main reason for our success. And that culture is deeply rooted in the lessons that we learned from those who came before us.
And the loyalty. As soon as we were allowed to train, I dropped into the privates immediately. And then I remember coming back out into this first striking class, and there was like 40 guys in there. I mean, it was packed. You know, the fundamentals, when we were able to use the masks and start training again.
Yep. But even the dummies, let me tell you, not only we bought the dummies, but we created specific curriculums.
Yeah.
A fundamentals curriculum and an advanced curriculum for the dummies.
I know.
And we put them, you know, so day one, students arrive back on the mat. They can't train with each other, but they see the dummies, all the cleaning equipment, and they look at the screens and they see lesson 1, special training with the dummies. These are the moves. So I'm sure that people appreciate that organization. They appreciate the effort.
Oh, yeah.
And they want to be a part of that.
So we just drifted off into a bit of a tangent, right? So
you just talk about loyalty. So we were talking about the words.
Yeah.
The last one was honesty, which is an important, you know, our words, they form a bridge between our soul, our spirit, and our fellow human beings. And we want that bridge to be solid. What's the value of your word? You need to ask yourself. It has a value. What is the value that you want your word to have? How are you going to price it?
well, yeah, my business trust is everything, right? Like
Trust.
if you don't have trust, you have nothing. I live by a code. A trust broken is a friend lost.
Correct.
You lose trust from a client or somebody that you work with or a friend. That's it. It's
So
gone.
right now you're talking about the 3 next words with what you just said. Honesty, honor, and loyalty. So those are the last 3 words. So you have rectitude, courage, benevolence, respect, honesty, honor, and loyalty. Honesty is what you said. Through your word, build trust. That creates a strong connection with individuals. That's loyalty. Through trust, you build loyalty. What's loyalty? Knowing you can count on someone. Knowing you can depend on someone. It's teamwork, right? Those soldiers that can be so vicious in utilizing violence. They can also die. They can jump on a grenade for their fellow soldiers. What an unselfish act. And so, but loyalty is only built through trust. I need to also think that you would do that for me. The best way to create trust in people is to show them that you trust them. If you're always suspicious of them, they're not going to be trustworthy. Or at least there's a bigger chance that they might act in untrustworthy ways. But when you show them that you trust them, it increases the chances that they're going to be trustworthy. And all of that creates honor. What is honor? Honor is a sense of legacy. It's a sense that your life is important and your actions matter. And that you want to portray yourself to the world in a certain way. Some people say, I don't care what other people think. I do care what other people think about myself. My reputation is important. Now, I'm not trying to please them. It's not about what they want me to do. It's about how I want them to perceive me based on my values, based on my virtues, based on what I think is right. If it's going to please them or not, that's a different story. I don't believe in being a people pleaser. But I believe in having a sense of pride in yourself and wanting to make those who love you proud of you and being concerned about your image and how you're going to be seen. And it's not about the ego. It's about everything that you carry with you and all the others that you carry with you. That's a sense of honor and working hard not to do anything that's going to embarrass that. And when you place that honor above all else, including material possessions, when you believe that who you are is more important than what you have, then it will be easier to be rectitudinous, to do the right thing.
So something, I don't know why it hit me, but I guess because in business, sometimes you have, I like to think of my client base as a pot of gold. Like, I only deal with people that I really like to deal with. And you have to deal with a lot of these kids. Sometimes there's a bad apple, right? And even if that bad apple is willing to pay you $10,000 a year in different types of fees, you have to make that decision, right? What's more important to you, right? That $10,000 or saying, listen, I think you need to go to a different school just because it doesn't fit right. Like, I have to often deal with that as a client. Like, I sense there's something wrong with this account. He's not acting right. And you almost have to make that decision. Listen, I'm probably not the guy for you, even though
it's going to hurt you financially.
Yeah. Do you find that too? Or like, how much, where's the wiggle room? How much do you give that guy who you just sense isn't really right? Maybe he's, being a little too aggressive in sparring. Correct. To the point where he thinks he's in the UFC and like, he just doesn't listen to your advice. Like, how much wiggle room do you give that person?
The thing is that we see jiu-jitsu as a form of therapy in a way.
1,000%.
So when we see a flaw, we don't judge the flaw. We want to help that person. So in most cases, we feel that we can tweak the practice. Like for example, somebody's being too aggressive in sparring, and we can't fix that with a conversation. And maybe we'll tell them to take private classes.
Yeah,
where then we have more control of the situation until they learn how to relax. But if there is a situation where we feel malice and we feel that what we're doing is not working, because we also have to realize that Jiu-Jitsu, as wonderful as Jiu-Jitsu is as a therapeutic, it doesn't fix all situations and all problems. And some people are beyond the benefits of Jiu-Jitsu. They just cannot benefit. And in that case, we must be able to, especially in even though it's still difficult because we want to make excuses, but we have a responsibility to not teach that person because that person can use it in a bad way.
Right.
I think our culture in many ways weeds those people out. They don't feel comfortable here because of the discipline, because of the respect. However, it's very rare, but in close to 30 years that I've been teaching, once or twice, and there was one specific example of someone who was paying way more than $10,000. Mm-hmm. And it was a significant contribution to the school as far as the classes and the privates and everything of that sort. But we had to stop teaching that person because we just felt that it was not helping and that it was a negative energy that we did not want to be a part of.
Yeah, and that in the OG Money podcast, we're taking the philosophy side and bringing that into the business side. And I've had to let go of a $10 million account because that energy you talk about, it was seeping into my bloodline.
Correct.
And it was destroying the rest of my clients and my family because it was doing some negative damage to my mind.
You know, some people listen to our podcast and they'll think, I don't care about that. To me, it's all about making money and I'm going to do everything I can to make money. And then I go back. If the selfish person knew the advantages of being unselfish, they would be unselfish for selfish reasons. That attitude that doesn't have any empathy, that doesn't have any benevolence at heart, that doesn't have any respect, that the ends justify the means and you're going to be able to cheat, and as long as you don't get caught, you do whatever it takes. In the end, that person is not going to end up well. I've seen it happen so many times.
Yeah, me too.
And not only financially speaking, but also your health. What's your greatest wealth?
Health.
Exactly. You can have all the money in the world. Sometimes I see billionaires and they're diabetic. Yeah. They have all sorts of diseases. What would you trade yourself to put yourself in that person's place when they are very unhealthy, but they have billions of dollars in their bank account? I wouldn't, because where's the happiness? The money is supposed to serve us in a way that's going to bring us comfort. But if I'm unhealthy, how can I find comfort?
Yeah, so let's make a right turn and go into health. You and your brothers have an extremely strict diet, right? And that diet, to me, needs to be, there's all these diet companies that are coming out. And like I was talking to Joaquin in our tactical class, I'm like, you should have a business where I can order up like a lean meat, whatever, so that it makes it simple for me to take this diet and incorporate it into my life. Because I know I've been getting some stomach aches lately, and like I'm just like, you know, I could have gone to the burger joint. I went to the sushi place the other night. I have to change my diet, but it's not easy.
People don't know about nutrition. We're not taught that in school.
Right.
Shouldn't we learn in school how to eat?
Yeah, it's amazing.
Right?
Yeah.
We learn so many things that we don't use. Shouldn't we learn how to eat? Something's wrong with our educational system.
Right.
But we don't. And even doctors, I think it's an elective that they might take for one semester nutrition class. It's not something that people look into, and more science shows us how important that is. So I'm very fortunate that my father was very big into nutrition, that I learned this from my jiu-jitsu teachers, and that from a young age I was taught what is good, what is healthy, what is unhealthy. Not only what to eat, but how to eat. We believe in food combinations to maximize the efficiency of our digestive process. And also when to eat. Now everyone talks about fasting, intermittent fasting. We've been talking about this forever.
Right.
And 10 years ago, people were like, you're crazy. You have to eat small portions every 3 hours. And I was like, I disagree respectfully. But now people are coming to that conclusion as well. And we've been doing this forever.
So what's the diet? Tell me the diet. Like
3 things.
Okay.
What to eat, selecting the highest quality foods. I believe that plant-based foods are extremely healthy. Fruits, vegetables. Some people talk bad about fruits because of sugars. I don't believe that at all. I think the sugars naturally found in fruits, not some industrialized fruit juice. Talking about
strawberries,
the real deal. Yes, organic fruits. I think they are extremely healthy. Greens, vegetables, amazing. And then you're going to have to decide the amount of animal protein consumption that you're going to have and the amount of starch consumption that you're going to have.
Okay, so I like steak.
So, for example, I don't like the word diet too much because I prefer live it, not diet.
Right.
I don't want to die because of the food that I eat.
Right.
So I like nutritional regimen. That's what we use. It's a regimen. It's a lifestyle. These are nutritional habits. Mm-hmm. Because when you think about diet, it's something that you do for a small period of time. And we should learn to eat in a healthy way, and we should love eating in a healthy way, and should not be sacrificed. It should be what we do and how we like to eat. So then each person is going to have to decide, and you're going to have to do your own research. I cannot tell you how much meat you're going to eat. Some people will tell you that studies show that a high consumption of red meat increases the likelihood of colorectal cancer. So you have to look at your family history, and if that's good for you. Others believe in the carnivore diet, and all they eat is red meat. What I believe is conscious nutrition. If you ask me what I eat, I can tell you. But I respect people who eat differently, but at least they are eating what they think is healthy and not just based on pleasure and desire. Oh, I eat this because I like it. If I tell you my favorite food in the world and you prove to me tomorrow that it's unhealthy, I'll stop it. I'll give it up. Is it going to be easy? No. So that's the mindset that I was raised in.
Yeah. So I think I need to make some changes in my diet, but you had mentioned that pizza was okay. That's a slice of pizza once in a while is not terrible for you. It's cheese, right? Would you say that you eat pizza, or that's something you decide because you find it not healthy that you won't? But for me, if I have pizza once a week, it's not terrible.
I'm trying to get better every day. So if you ask me, do I eat pizza once in a while? I do.
Okay, but you say that as try to get better every day. Do you think pizza is bad for you?
We have to ask ourselves, is pizza good for you? Is it healthy? What is in the pizza? Cheese and white flour?
Right.
Is that good? So you just told me, yeah, but if I eat it once in a while, it's not bad for me. I agree. It's true. But that's the same mindset of saying, oh, if I lie once in a while. fight cheetahs once in a while.
Right.
So we believe in this philosophy of excellence.
Right.
We should not justify doing something bad just because we do it once in a while. If we're going to live a life of excellence, then we should strive to only do what is best and not settle for doing bad things once in a while. Now, which doesn't mean that we cannot make mistakes. And I make mistakes all the time, but I don't plan to make the mistakes, and I don't justify the mistakes, which doesn't mean that when I make a mistake, I get mad at myself or I have guilty thoughts. No. I try to be on the path of improvement.
Right.
And it's slow, and it's steps, and it's fine. But I is pizza good? No, I don't think it's good.
Okay, so what I would think if you and I sat down and we had a structured diet, you'd be like, Lonnie, replace this pizza with this. And if you,
I'll tell you what, I eat way less pizza today than I ate 5 years ago.
Right. So, okay, but I guarantee you would say replace your pizza with this, and it would be just as good as a pizza. If you showed me,
absolutely.
You know what I mean? That's my point.
I did that with ice cream. You know,
Right.
When I was growing up, the only ice cream that my father, I wouldn't say allowed because it wasn't an imposition, but that was accepted in our nutritional regimen was vanilla ice cream.
I love it.
So when I moved to America, I discovered Häagen-Dazs.
It's the best vanilla ice cream there is, by the way. That is the number to this day.
Oh
nothing
God.
beats Häagen-Dazs.
So I love Häagen-Dazs. So I used to have it always on my freezer, and then sometimes he came home late. I was single, and then lay down in bed, watch a movie, and have Häagen-Dazs vanilla ice cream. But then with this philosophy of growth and development and trying to get better, I started thinking that sugar is not good for me. Right. It's true that once in a while it's not going to hurt me, but why? And then I'm going to miss it all the time because I'm having it once in a while, so it's part of my psyche. It's always there, and I have to control myself, so I only have it once in a while. Is that better than just cutting it? And then after some time, I'm not even going to miss it anymore because too much time has passed.
Right.
But I love the idea of substituting. So that's right when açaí started becoming popular. We always ate it in Brazil, but in America, there was no açaí. Right. And when I started having access to açaí, then I started creating these wonderful frozen açaí, how do you call it, sorbets or whatever it is.
Combinations.
Without any sugar, using dates, putting it in the blender, and then just serving it as an ice cream.
Right.
And let me tell you, I haven't eaten a Häagen-Dazs ice cream in probably 5 years. If you right now, I'm pretty hungry right now. I was teaching all morning. If you put me a Häagen-Dazs ice cream in front of me and a açaí, like my wife prepares for me, with red apples and dates, and you tell me, look, you can have either one. It's perfect for your health. Choose, just based on taste. I'll choose the açaí.
Right.
I will not choose the Häagen-Dazs. As much as I loved it before,
right.
But I lost that. It's going to be a little bit too sweet. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'll still enjoy it. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. But I'll rather have the other one. So creating healthy substitutes, very important. But at the same time, see, whenever we have this conversation, I remember my jiu-jitsu teacher. Because he always would look at me. When I was 18 years old, I love steak as well, by the way. I grew up, Brazilian steak is amazing. And you've probably been to Brazilian steakhouses.
Yeah, they cut out all the different meats, exactly. 30 different meats.
Exactly. And I grew up going to that on weekends. And when I was 18 years old, as you said, I went to live with my teacher for about 2 months before I became a teacher. That was part of my instructors. He was like a grandfather. And
I'm going to just cut in there and you brushed that off. He was like a grandfather, and the value of having that as a role model. I can't stress enough the value of just finding people in life that you want to emulate and be like, and have good quality role models in your life. It's so powerful.
And I don't take that for granted. And he was a true genius and someone who will be remembered 200 years from now. And one day we were both just having a conversation about philosophy, as we always did, about life. I was only 18 years old, but I always enjoyed the philosophy and grew up with that. That was part of my identity. And so one day he said, "Do you eat meat?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Why?" I said, "Because I like it." He gave me this look. "Because you like it." "Well, do you think it's good for you?" At the time I said, "No, I don't." I said, "Then why do you eat it?" "Just because you like it." So if you like something, but you know it's bad for you, but you still do it, I consider that a weakness. He said, "I think meat is bad. So according to my beliefs, if you eat meat, you're ignorant. If you eat meat thinking that it's good for you." According to my beliefs. And once again, I respect people who think differently and who think meat is great for you. I'm not here saying it's up to every person, and do your research. That's what I recommend. But for someone who thinks that meat is bad, then it's like, if you eat it thinking that it's good for you, let's take cigarettes, for example, smoking cigarettes. The other day I was talking to someone who said, "I don't think cigarettes are bad for me." Really told me that. Then in my mind, that's an ignorant person. Lack of information. But if someone tells me, "No, I know it's bad for me, but I still smoke," then it's a weakness. We all have weaknesses to a certain extent. But we want to fight these weaknesses, and we don't want to give in to them. And as human beings, we want to feel, as I said earlier, that we are the masters of our minds and we're not a slave. We're not slaves to our desires. And that look that he gave me, like, really? You know it's bad, but you do it because you like it? What do you mean you like it? Just don't do it. Aren't you, like, almost challenging me? Aren't you strong enough to just stop? Don't you have that inside of you? He called it willpower. And from that day forward, I didn't eat meat for 7 years. 7 years. Then one day, I was working actually for a telecommunications company. When I graduated from college, I was still teaching Jiu Jitsu. I was doing both. And we were in New York City for a meeting.
Which telecommunications company? Because so did I.
Yeah, it was called Cellular Realty Advisors. We did when we were building installing all the towers for the cell phones.
I was a WorldCom guy.
Okay, yes, and and I was helping them with Brazil, with the Brazilian market through contacts, and so we went to New York City for a meeting, and then after we're having a dinner meeting, and it was in a steakhouse called Sparks in New York City. Of course,
that's where Paul Castellano got whacked.
And from when I was a young kid, I always heard my parents talking about Sparks. And that was their favorite restaurant in New York City. And so I said, I have to try this steak. And that's the problem with doing something once. You think it's going to be only this one time. Right. And I had not eaten steak for 7 years. And after that one time, then I started eating steak regularly again. And now I'll say that I'll have steak once every 2 months, once every 3 months, something like that.
Right.
And work in progress. I'm getting better every day.
But you're also not convinced that it's that bad for you. Because if you were convinced that it was that bad for you, you would not do it.
You're right. You're right. And I'm not convinced that eating it with the spacing that I do, that it's bad for me. Correct.
So let's jump back into a couple of more of where are we on the 753 codes? I think we hit quite a few of them.
So we did the 7, the 5. You have nutrition, which we just discussed a lot about. Exercise, the value of exercise.
Yeah, I'm a proponent of if I do not work out in the morning and do my cold plunge in the morning, I have a complete and I'll add sleep into that. I am a different human being.
For sure. It's so important for our physical health. Yeah. And for our mental health.
Yeah.
And for our spiritual health. Everything is connected, by the way.
Yeah.
Right? So you just said exercise, and you said what else? If you don't exercise and if you don't?
Sleep.
Correct. So that's the third one. Rest.
If I don't sleep and work out, and my wife, before COVID, I was coming here 4 or 5 days a week. The reason I was here 4 or 5 days a week, because I'll tell you, my wife, if I came home and I didn't come, she would say, go work out, because the stress at work, it needed to get out somewhere, and this was the best place to get it out. right? And she knew that I needed it. So I can't wait till I can get back into that.
But the question that I ask you and our friends who are listening, if you think sleep is important, yes. Okay, how much time did you spend researching what's the best mattress for your sleep? Do you consider that an important investment? Think about how much time you spend in bed every day. So how much research have you done on pillows and what's the best type of pillow for you to sleep? How much research have you done on different things that you can do to improve the quality of your sleep? For example, are you a mouth breather? Have you read about how breathing through your mouth has so many unhealthy effects, not just for your oral health, starting with that, your teeth, your gums, but also your internal health? Have you heard that taping your mouth during sleep, if you're a mouth breather, is an amazing thing for your health?
I haven't heard that.
So, but that's because we're so busy sometimes with other factors that we're not spending enough time thinking about our well-being. And no investment is better than investing in ourselves. And so sleep is important. And each one of the 753 codes, spending time, and that's what we propose. Think. Be conscious about your life. Examine your life. And the 753 code is a guide. So, okay, examine my life. What am I going to examine? Okay, look at these 15 words and examine each one of them. Give yourself a score. Do that once a month.
I think sleep's the most important of everything.
It's amazing.
Do you agree that
without sleep you collapse?
Are you also a different person? Because sometimes someone will say, oh, it's mental. But if I get 6 hours versus 7, I'm a different human being.
For sure. For sure. So, and then hygiene.
Yeah.
Also very important. Imagine not showering for a week. How are you going to feel?
Right.
Right? So being a clean person, not just yourself, but also your surroundings. And I think it also has to do with organization. Being an organized person. Clutter is very bad for your mind as well. And for your body. And now with the COVID thing, everyone's talking about washing the hands and hygiene and how important that is in preventing disease. So we've been talking about this always through the 753 code. And then positivity. That's so important. Being a positive person. Not complaining, not whining, not being negative, not using language in a negative way. Being careful with what you say because it influences how you feel. Positivity is so vital. And people say, but wait, positivity is already the mind, or are you still talking about the body? Yes, we're talking about the body because positivity is the antidote of stress. And stress is very, very physical. It is about hormones, cortisol, adrenaline, hormones that can have a very destructive effect if they are a product of preoccupation and worry and negativity. Those hormones are there for a reason, to protect your life in a moment that you have to fight, but not for you to be negative and worry about things. So I always say, I'm for a life with more occupation and less preoccupation. And during your occupation, while you're working, be positive. Look at things from the positive side. And that's the 5. And then the 3, the components of the warrior mindset. You have awareness, balance, and flow. 3 words. Awareness is twofold. Being present, 360-degree awareness. Being aware of your surroundings. Noticing the little things. When you put gas in your car, are you looking at your phone? Are you standing there and someone can easily come and hit you from behind? Or do you put your phone down and just, in a calm way, it's calm alertness, it's not paranoid, but in a calm way, do you observe your surroundings? Do you feel present and able to anticipate anything that comes your way? And also able to appreciate the beauty of life. Because people think, oh, you're paranoid. No, it's also about being able to see a beautiful sunset that you might miss if you are looking at your phone. So are you aware? Are you present? And I love using the gas station example because I believe in practicing with the little things. And if you do that every time you put gas, you're building the habit of, when you're outdoors, being aware. When you're around people, being aware. And that's the last word, by the way. Flow, which is exactly that. Flow is your ability to develop natural instincts that are positive based on your training. So all the other words in the 753 code, starting with rectitude. In the beginning, it's going to be a conscious effort, but eventually it's going to become natural through repetition. Just like in Jiu Jitsu, like you want to be able to defend a punch, so you repeat that movement so many times. If you want to become more honest, practice with the little things. Make a conscious effort. You have to decide, I want to be more courageous. And then you start practicing that and telling yourself that you are courageous and not being negative, and then eventually it's going to become natural. It's going to flow from your heart. And the second of the three is fudōshin. And that's I have t-shirts, fudōshin. And that's so important because it has to do with imperturbability. Not allowing things to disturb your peace of mind. So if you're short-tempered, what does that mean? You're easily irritated. You're easily disturbed. So work to lengthen your temper so it's not so short. Some people say, no, I was born like that. That's my personality. I disagree. I think that we can always improve anything we want to improve, and we can transform ourselves no matter how old we are. It's never too late for transformation. It's never too late for change. So we can improve. It's not that you're either short-tempered or you're not. It's stages, it's levels, it's degrees. So you can work to improve. And how do you work? With the little things. Traffic. Somebody cuts you off. You promise yourself that you're not going to react, that you're going to stay calm. And then that will start developing the habit. So not being someone who's easily affected by other people's behaviors. Not giving others the power to upset you, to take you out of your balance. It's just like in Jiu Jitsu, we teach base, a way that you stand where if someone pushes you, they can't knock you down. So once again, are you so weak that anyone tells you something and immediately you lose your balance? So obviously I'm exaggerating when I say, are you so weak? But it's a way to motivate you to put in the work and make the effort to improve. We're never going to be perfect, but we should strive for perfection.
Yeah, so I'm going to, there's a quote that I live by, and it's prepare for the worst and hope for the best, right? So in finance, that's what we're always thinking about for the client. Now, a light bulb went off on me on the way in here, and I was like, you know what? Like, I train jiu-jitsu, I go to striking, and then I go to tactical. And that is basically the essence of prepare for the worst case scenario in life and then hope for the best.
Can I suggest something?
Yes.
Because I know that quote, and sometimes, remember I talked about positivity, and I talked about choosing words wisely to avoid any negativity. So you said, hope for the best. I'm with you. Always think of the best. Always focus on the best. Believe that the best is going to happen to you all the time. And even when hardship comes your way, and it always does, there's a great essay that I love by Ralph Waldo Emerson. It's called Compensation. It talks about the polarity of life, the bipolar nature of life. You're going to have good and bad. You're going to have tough times. You're going to have good times. But look at it all as good. So hope for the best. Expect the best. It's always going to be the best, no matter what. But instead of saying prepare for the worst, instead of using that word, I like to say prepare for everything.
Oh, that's interesting.
Hope for the best and prepare for everything.
All scenarios. Anything can happen. If you think
anything can happen. Prepare for everything. Because if you say prepare for everything, you are preparing for it. I agree with you. Let's prepare for that worst case scenario.
Right.
But I don't want to, if that worst case scenario happens, I don't want to think of it as the worst case scenario, because there's a lesson to be learned in everything. And I believe that if things are happening in the opposite way than what I wanted, it's still going to make me stronger.
Right.
If it doesn't kill me, whatever it is, it makes me stronger. And so I like to say that. Hope for the best, prepare for everything.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you one last question here. Well, actually two, but you come from Brazil, right? You grew up, Brazil was a bit of a socialist country at the time growing up, was it not? Did you?
Well, not really.
Okay, but on and off?
Yeah, in 1964 there was a military coup exactly to prevent communism.
Okay.
Supported by the United States. and they were in power for 21 years. So from 64 to 85. So the first phase of my life, it was a right-wing dictatorship.
Right.
Then in 1985, they opened up for a more democratic system with elections. And since then, you had a more social democratic, socialist, depending on the time, leaning, but more leftist philosophy. So I lived through both times.
Are you seeing that creeping into our country? And do you think in our lifetime that the United States at some point will actually become a socialist country or a left-leaning socialist the way it is in Brazil?
I would rather not go into the political analysis of the term socialist versus capitalist. I would rather speak more philosophically.
Yeah.
So if you're talking about, do I think that the United States is going to become a country where the state is going to become more important than the individual? No, I don't.
Okay.
Because I believe that our roots are too deep. I believe that what happened in the Eastern Bloc, in the Soviet Union, is not going to happen here, ever. Because I believe that this country was founded upon, if you study the Independence War and what caused those individuals back then to rebel against the crown, against the British Empire, and to seek their independence, it had to do with freedom. And this country is built on freedom. And I believe that there will always be a resistance against this type of movement. And as I said, in my position as a Jiu Jitsu teacher, I don't get into politics as far as Democrats versus Republicans.
Yeah, same thing with me.
But I think that independent of that, I think that it will not creep into our country. But I think it's not something that we should just relax and hope that it never happens. I think it's up to each one of us to make sure that it doesn't happen by always valuing the fundamental tenets of this country, that this country was founded upon, and also improving. Because when we talk about philosophy, and I mentioned the samurai warriors, they were not perfect. If you talk about the knights, they were not perfect. If you talk about even the ancient Greeks, they were far from perfect. We have evolved as a society looking at some of the things that would happen back then. Some of the horrific things that would happen back then. I would give you slavery as an example. So there is still a lot of room for improvement in our society. And there are some issues that must be dealt with. And groups that have a legitimate cause in fighting for their rights. But I believe that this fight should always be to get closer and not further away from the original promise of America, which is freedom and equality and the pursuit of happiness. As long as we stick with our roots, and I'm not talking about people, I'm talking about principles. People are flawed, and they will always be, and we are flawed right now. But it's about the principles, about the values that were set for us. And if we as a society, we remember where we come from, and we value our fundamental principles, we will be okay. Doesn't mean that we should not always strive to improve and to perfect our union.
Yeah, so you and I can talk for about 10 more hours, but I don't think that would be fair to you because I know you have some exciting news and things to deal with today. But I do want to leave the audience off with, I know you mentioned The Art of War and Healing Back Pain by Sarno on my book. Read them both. If I needed your third favorite book, what do we need to read?
I love Stoic philosophy.
That's getting very popular right now.
So, yes, Marcus Aurelius, Meditations, that's a great read. I love Seneca as well. So I think that's a wonderful book.
Ryan Holiday's got some new books about that.
Oh, really?
The
That's
you Google
great.
the name Ryan Holiday. He's got some new stuff on that. It's great.
I really think Stoicism is an amazing book. And if you're interested in the Japanese philosophy, Hagakure. 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 It's an apprentice of an old samurai who learned many lessons and then explained them. And it's an interesting book.
Well, I'm going to leave this off by saying that you're going to be starting your own podcast, come hell or high water if I have to do it myself, because those Friday night sermons that I miss sometimes, and I know I can go on Facebook, but I don't, I'm urging you to get that on a podcast so I can click on my Apple iTunes and I can listen to them whenever I want on my drive home, because the knowledge that this man gives us is just absolutely, I mean, I can go into the, just what you said the other day about work ethic and how it's so emotional. I mean, that hits such a chord. And whenever I'm here on Friday nights, it's just like blown away with the knowledge. So we got to get you up and running on that podcast. And where could people find you if they want to hear all this knowledge on a daily basis? I know you're on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter.
Yes, Valente Brothers. Valente Brothers, you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all the different social media, and our website, www.valentebrothers.com. And the best thing is if you can come visit us one day here in our school in North Miami Beach, we will be delighted to have you. We have a 753 code book. 753 code is also on social media, by the way, Instagram. We have a 753 code.
Is the book on Amazon?
Page. Not yet. We're still just selling it here to our students and to people who come visit us here in the building. But I'm sure eventually it's going to be, and you can contact us as well if you're interested in the book.
Yeah. With that said, truly an honor to get to sit down and pick the brain of a modern-day samurai, literally living the code and the life. So this is going to be the first interview in the OG Money podcast. It was a pleasure, and it was really inspiring for me. And I can't tell you how much, I'm excited to get this out to the audience. But selfishly, like you said in there, like just the knowledge that I'm going to get, I'll probably listen to this podcast 5 times.
And I'm very excited about the future of the OG Money podcast. You already shared with me some of the people who you're going to invite and some of the ideas. And I, for one, am going to always be tuned in because I know how hard you work and I know how much knowledge you have. So this is going to be a gem here for all of us.
I'm excited. All right, great job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the OG Money Podcast. Click the subscribe button below to be notified when new episodes become available.
Securities offered through Securities America Inc., member FINRA SIPC. Advisory services offered through Securities America Advisors Inc., an SEC-registered investment advisor. This site is published for residents of the United States and is for informational purposes only and does not constitute an offer to sell or a solicitation of an offer to buy any security or product that may be referenced herein. Persons mentioned on this website may only offer services and transact business and or respond to inquiries in states or jurisdictions in which they have been properly registered or are exempt from registration. Not all products and services referenced on this site are available in every state, jurisdiction, or from every person listed. Third-party comments may not be representative of all customer experiences.